I'm hoping I'm on. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Michele Jutrisa and I'm an independent demonstrator here with Stamping Up. I'm just checking out a sentiment for my card that we're making today. And it's on a new set that will be coming out next month, and I think I've found the one I want, and I'm hoping it's going to fit. But we'll see. Might be a bit big, but anyway, we might look at that in a little while. Okay, so please jump on, say hello, let us know where you're from. It's always great welcoming new people on here. Just putting everything to one side so I don't lose it all, because on my messy desk I tend to lose lots of bits and pieces. Okay, hello Joan, welcome, thank you for jumping on. I'm going to flip my camera down and I've got something exciting I want to show you. Well, I think it's exciting. I don't know whether that's the right word to use, but I check out Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest all the time looking for interesting fun folds or things like that that I could share with you guys. And I found this one a little while ago and I just really thought this is a really cool fold. I really love it. It stands up quite nicely and it's a little bit interesting. So I couldn't even find a name for it, so I don't know what you might want to call it, but it's quite a fun card and it's something that you could build it up quite a bit with the right products. So I've got lots of ideas in my head what I could put on the front of this card to decorate it and all that sort of thing, but it means buying a whole lot of new products. So I'm playing around with some product that we've got, which is still current to the end of this month. We're going to be making a card using Cute as a Bug, but this is our fun fold we're going to do today. So let's get started, and I'm going to start by showing you how to cut and make this fun card. So if you have any questions while we're working along, please jump on and ask. So let me pop this to one side. And let me bring in my paper trimmer. So the size of this card, this will fit in your standard envelope. It's 10.5 centimetres deep. This is when folded. When it's open, it's still 10.5 centimetres, but it's 20 centimetres in length, but it does fold down to your finished size of about 15 centimetres. So it should still fit into your standard envelope that we have with Stamping Up. So what we need is a piece of cardstock, and I've got a piece here, and we're going to cut this at 10.5. So we've got our A4 cardstock is 29.9 by 21. So we need 20 centimetres in depth. So just let me make sure I've got this around the right way. No good cutting this if I've cut it all the wrong way, which I almost was about to do. So that's our depth, 21. So we want to cut a piece which is 10.5 centimetres in width. Let me just turn this around. I'll turn it around a little bit. There we go, and you can see it. So I'm going to cut that at 10.5. And I'm going to cut this down to 20 centimetres. Hello, Anita. How are you? I'm glad you've caught me live. Hello, Sharon. Everyone's on today. You must have known I'm making a fun fold. Okay, so we need a piece of cardstock, which is our 10.5 by 20 centimetres, which I have here. We're now going to do some scoring to get these score lines here. So there's a couple of different ways. Just moving my mouse out of the road. Hello, Leslie. How are you? Oh, I've still got my cough and everything, Leslie, but that's okay. We're just going to have to live with it, I think, now. And I'm on Ventolin. So if I go a bit hoarse, it's because the Ventolin is affecting my voice box. So we need to make some score lines. Now, the easiest way to make these score lines is we're going to score right through, but we don't want to score too heavy. We want to score fairly lightly because we want to be able to bend it, but there's certain sections of this that we do want to bend. As you can see, there's a bend here, but we don't have the bend on this one. We've got the bend on this end, but we don't have it up the top and down the bottom here. So even though I'm going to score right through, and it's just the easiest way. I was playing earlier. You can, if you wanted to, just, sort of, actually, I'll show you that way first. The easiest way is to do all your score lines first, but we can do this by cutting. So let's cut. I'm going to turn my trimmer around. So I have got my measurements up here, and I'm going to pop this on 2.5 centimetres, because what I've worked out is I've got a 2.5 centimetre strip at top and bottom, and 2.5 centimetres in to that first score line. Okay, so I'm going to put my trimmer up the top up here, and I'm going to pop it onto 2.5. So I've put my little cutting blade here on my 2.5 centimetre mark, and make sure that my cardstock is lined up to the top on 2.5. Pop that in, and we're going to cut this all the way down to 17.5. So it's at 20 centimetres minus the 2.5, because we don't want to cut all the way through. Okay, then we're going to flip this around, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So this is on the longer length. So I've got that all lined up at 2.5 centimetres. I've got my cutting blade at 17.5. So that's 2.5 from my end, and I'm going to cut up here until I get to my 2.5 centimetre mark, just there. So that's going to give us 2 even cuts through there like that. Now this is where the scoring. You can, as I said before, you could score all the way through, or you could do little portions. I find it a lot easier scoring all the way through. I really do. So I'm going to pop that again on my 2.5 centimetres, take my cutting blade right out of the road, and I'm just going to give that a light score at 2.5. Might just give it that little bit more. I'm not pushing down too much because I don't want to make too much of a dent. I just want to be able to see where my score line is. I'm going to flip this around because I find it a lot easier to do my short measurements on this side and my longer measurements on here. So then we're going to pop this on 5 centimetres, making sure that's on 5, and I'm going to score that again. Again, just a light score, nothing too hard. I'm going to flip that around again, and again I'm going to do my 2.5 centimetre score line on this side of my track. So where have I got 2.5 or 1 inch? And again, just a light score all the way through, and then I'm just going to flip this over and do it 5. You can do it, finding it very hard to see that 5, that is way over there. There we go, there's 5 there. So basically we want to score it 2.5 and 5 from each end, okay? If you miss something, please let me know. Now I'm going to have this template here in front of me because this is my front, okay? I want this angle, the height angle here, to be on my front and to be on my right-hand side. So here's my cardstock. I'm going to just see, whoops, I just need to check my cutting there. I may not have cut it right up to that 2.5 centimetre mark. Let me just double check that one. Bring this in back in at 17.5. Seems like I was just short by a little bit. Let me just double check that. Double check my scoring as well. That's better. I think it was my scoring. Okay. So let's bring this back in, our template back in again, and I'm going to fold these two end pieces because we need those two folded. So I'm just going to start by gently just pushing those in, and then our second score line, which is just there, we're going to fold it back. So this is just a little bit on the fiddly side, and if you want to just do one side at a time, just do one side at a time. So we're going to create a piece that looks like that. Now this piece is going to go down, so we want this one up, we want this one down. But instead of the folds on these end pieces, we're making the folds on this centre piece. So we're going to fold this one back. Again, just very gently, just folding in that centre piece. We don't want to fold in those edges there. And we're going to fold that back there like that. So we're going to end up with a piece a little bit curved, but once we push everything down, it will come all into place. So grab your bone folder. Just making sure all of these parts are all nice and lined up. And give that a good burnish on that side. Folding down here, making sure these are all nice and flat. Give it a good burnish on those two edges there. Flip it over and give these folds here a good burnish. And this one here as well. So you just want to make sure all of those are really nice and folded. So there's our card base. So it's as difficult as that, which is actually that's the hardest part of this whole card, is just making sure that you've got all those folds going in the one direction. Okay, so now we're up to time to decorate it. So just going to pop that to one side for the moment, and I've picked out these papers out of the Cute as a Bug. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this piece here. So we need to have a strip of cardstock, which is going to go from this fold here right across. Now it's probably a lot easier to work with this on the flat, but what we want to do is we want to have, and we've got to cut two of everything because we're going to put cardstock on this, or designer series paper on the front and designer series paper on the back as well. So we're going to start with this panel here. Well, actually, we're going to start with this panel going all the way through. Just trying to think, where's my notes over here? Yeah, so we're going to cut this piece here. So what I've got here is a piece of cardstock, and this is just over 20 centimetres wide. I want a piece around about 20, and I'm going to cut my strip. This piece in here is 5.5, and let me double check that. Make sure that that is all correct. So that's 5.5 centimetres. I don't like having too much of a gap all the way around, so I'm only going to take 3 mil off. So I want to cut a piece 5.3 by 20 centimetres. But my design of my paper is actually quite big, and I only want to go it in the centre there. So I'm going to work out where I want the bottoms of my mushrooms to start, or how much of my mushrooms do I want, all the bottoms and part of the tops. The easiest way to explain it, if I pop this underneath my trimmer, I want to cut this at 5.2 because I'm only taking 3 mil off my width, so I've only just got a tiny weeny little edge of the mossy meadow. If I cut it there, I'm cutting all the heads of my mushrooms off. I've only got my short mushrooms. So if I take this up a little bit and I go to there and I cut it there, if I want my heads of my mushrooms, those ones to be showing there, and then I'm going to be going smaller here. So my 5.2, I'm going to be just cutting around about here. So you've got to make a decision on where you want this positioned on your card, because the image is much bigger than the area we're going to be using. So I'm going to go a little bit in between the two. I don't mind losing the heads off my mushrooms because my decoration is, which I'm doing a little bit later on, is the focal point. So, but you've just got to decide on where you want that to go. So I've cut that there, but I want to trim this down to 5.2. Now I need to cut 2 of these. I need to cut one for the front and one for the back. So I've got a little bit of the mushrooms. I've got my piece of my tree trunk. I've got a few mushrooms all there, and that is going to go right across there. So I've sort of kept majority of my mushroom within the confines of the area that I want it to be. Now, as I said, I want to cut 2 of these, so I'm going to do another one. I'm going to decide on, okay, if I go 5.2, where's that going to cut? I'm actually going to take it a little bit higher, and I'm going to cut it probably around about there. So again, I'm just going to lose a little bit of the top of my mushrooms, but I'm going to lose a lot more at the bottom. Go down here to 5.2. So what we do for the front, we've got to do for the back. So there's our 2 pieces for our front and our back. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut these into segments going across the width. Now the reason why I'm cutting this piece first is so then when I glue these down, it's going to follow all the way through. Now, the segments that I'm going to cut this down to, I've got one definite segment here. I've got one definite segment right across because that's one piece. There's no fold in there. But then I've got this little one here. So I'm going to cut 3 pieces. I want 1, 2, and 3. Each one of these 2 pieces here is 2.5 centimetres wide because that's where we scored it at, and I'm going to cut those at 2.2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out on here where I want this to start and finish, and which one of these I exactly want to be my front and my back, because I'm actually going to use this piece here, which I cut just for my back. I'm going to use that on my front. So what I want to do is cut out a piece at 2.2. So that's my 2.5 minus my 3 centimetres. I'm going to cut out another piece at 2.2. And then keeping those in line because we want to adhere those on. The next piece I need to cut is the panel that's going to go right from that score line right to the end. And that is 14.7. It's 15 centimetres minus the 3 mil. So 14.7 is going to take it to there. Sorry, my camera is not quite long enough. So I'm just going to lose that little bit on the end. That's going to go in the bin. So let's pop these on so we can keep these in the right position. So these are our 2 pieces there, and then that piece joins onto there. You can see how our image is flowing all the way through. So I'm going to pop this one on first. As I said, I just like to have a small little edge of the mossy meadow showing around it, not too big, because if I cut it down too small, then I'm going to lose a lot of those images. So that's going to go just there like that, making sure I've got a little bit of a gap on either end of there and one through there. And we're going to do the same on this one. So really we just want just a little bit of the gap, but that image is flowing through because there's our log there. And then this one here. Now, of course, you wouldn't have to worry about all of this if you used a pattern that was the same all the way across, like a floral pattern or something that's just textured rather than with a design. But this has got like a, I don't know, it's like probably the easiest way I can describe it. It's like a storyline going all the way through. Now, I want to keep that one there. And that going through like that. So there's our centerpiece. Now, of course, we're going to cut this one here and do exactly the same thing to the back. So we're going to do our back, but this time, instead of cutting my small pieces from this end, I'm going to cut my small pieces from this end up here. So again, this time I'm going to cut my 14.7 first, and then I'm going to cut two pieces at 2.2. And we're going to glue all of those in. So let's bring this back in, and we're going to start with this one this time. Might be needing some new glue soon. Then we've got this piece going on next. Still continuing our design right across. And let's pop the last one on. And this piece is going to go just there like that. So there we go. There's our front and back with those panels. So now we just got to do the top and bottom again on both sides. So this time I've grabbed a all over pattern piece, and again I'm going to cut strips at, these are 2.5, so minus my 3, I'm going to cut them at 2.2. Making sure that's all even there, and I'm going to cut 2 strips of this, which I'll probably need, yeah, probably just only need the 2 strips. So another 2 point, cut that at 2.2, yes, and another, my eyes aren't as good today, I don't think, and another 2.2, that just moved a little bit, so let's just push that back in again, double check myself, 1, 2, we're going to cut 2 strips across like that. Okay, these ones don't matter so much. Sorry I keep moving my trimmer around. I'm used to having my trimmer at the top. So I'm going to line these up because I need to cut. Actually, no, I won't do that way. I'll cut one at a time. I need to cut 2 at 2.2. I need to cut the first one. It's the opposite to this one. So I need to cut the first one at 14.7. And then 2 at 2.2. And we're going to do the opposite with this one. So we're going to cut 2 at 2.2. This is just, I mean, you don't have to do this one because it's an all over pattern following through, but it's always good practice. One, two, and then 14.7. Okay. So let's get rid of that. Put that down there for the moment. We've got those coming in that way. And let's adhere these down. So again, just working on my flat. Up. So I mean, in some ways you probably could have just cut one piece going right down there because a lot of this is going to get eventually covered up. But I think for the purpose of showing how this all goes together, because it depends on how you decide you want to finish off this card to the way it's going to look. Excuse me. Okay. Excuse me, sorry. Oh, it's not fun having this. And as I said, the Ventolin really plays havoc with my voice. So now, I've mucked this up a little bit, but anyway, it's not going to matter. Because that piece, they should have been exactly the same. But that's okay. Because it's an all-over pattern, you're not going to tell, and because we're going to be, and I've just realised I've only cut the front, so what I could do is flip this over, and that'll put it back to, let me just see. Oh, God. No, I think I've really just messed that up, but that's okay. It's not, you're not going to know. Because this is going to get, look, this section here is going to get covered. And it's an all-over pattern, so it really doesn't tell. My screen has changed. How's my, oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. I must have tapped my mouse. Sorry about that. I was concentrating on what I'm doing. It didn't look up. Put that mouse right out of the road. Oh, sorry. Pop that one on and that goes there. So that's now that side of our card. So we're liking this so far? I hope so. So let's just cut the other side. So we want to do now for this side here. So again, we want to cut at 2.2. And if you're really clever, you would have cut it all up in one big piece and cut like 2.2, 8.8 piece wide, and then cut all your long pieces first if you didn't want to worry about all these pieces all going in the same direction. So I'm going to pop this at 2.2. Making sure that's all I'm doing, cutting both together. The back, that's one. Another one, and a 14.7. Now that is all our cutting, I think, done. So let's just adhere all of this on. Thank you, Leslie. Oh, I've had this since November, Anita. It's driving me crazy. It's related to bronchitis, from what I can gather, and yeah. But it takes a lot out of me, and it disturbs me during the night as well. So neither my husband or I are getting good night's sleeps because I could just start coughing, and at least it doesn't sound as bad as what it used to sound last year. It sounded very, very rough and very, very hoarse. But I can get into a coughing fit where I cough until I'm almost sick. So it's sort of, that's why they've got me on the Ventolin to open my airways. But the downside of that is I lose my voice. So it comes down to a point, do I breathe or do I sing? Well, I think most people want me to breathe rather than sing, so that's fine. Okay. Whoops, that needs to come down just a little bit. A bit more glue on that. Okay, so there we have it. That's our back of our card and that's our front of our card. Doesn't that look snazzy? I just think that looks so cool. We're not even finished. We haven't even decorated it yet. Yeah, this is the puffer one that you can use I go by the colour. One's blue, one's red. The red one, which is a prescription one, I have it every night time, and that one really opens my airways. The other one doesn't do anything for me. That's just the one that you can have, 3 or 4 times a day. So, yeah. Okay, so let's decorate this. So I pulled out some bits and pieces. I started off with this because I really love this. This is one of the new products coming out in the May to August catalogue. I've got to keep remembering not to say annual because it's not a yearly catalogue now. We're going to get 3 catalogues a year. And this is part of the Scalloped blooms. And I thought that these circles were a lot of fun. So I've pulled out 2 of the circles. Now, one circle is just, with these, what you get is one circle will just cut out a scallop, and the other scallop circle cuts out a decorative edge. So in saying that, there's like a row of stitching dots all the way around. So the biggest one here is just a plain scallop. The next one has got like a stitching line all the way around. And I'm using the third plain one, or the second plain one, and the 4th one with the stitching, or the second one with the stitching. So they're the 2. But this is a beautiful set, and you've got all these other little tags and everything that you can use as well. So I've already done this part, and I have already cut out one in the Cajun Craze, and I've cut out one in Basic Beige. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere these 2 together, but I'm going to offset them. I don't want them, you can place that one perfectly inside the other so it looks like a flower. But what I want to do, because I'm actually going to cut a portion of this off, I want to have it sort of more offset like that. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue in here and glue these together. Now I'm just thinking as I'm doing this, it'd probably be a lot easier, and I don't even mind if they're offset, not sort of in line with each other. Probably a lot easier if I cut these down before I glue them together. But anyway, we're going to keep going with the way I'm going to roll. And then this is eventually going to sit on here. So I want to trim this down. So I'm just going to grab myself a pencil. I did have one here earlier. And I'm going to just mark this where I want it to cut down. And this is where I was saying earlier, if you wanted to, you could put that panel right through, because this section here is going to get covered up. We're going to be gluing this down on top of it. And I probably want to cut from about there to, say, let's go to there. So I'm going to bring in my long trimmer, bring in my trimmer again, and I'm going to line those marks I just made with the pencil. Let me just turn this around so you guys can see it. Where did I put my pencil marks? I put one there, and I've got the other one there. So I want to line that up in that track. And I'm going to pop that down, and we're going to trim that away. Now I have got a little bit of pencil mark there, so let's just rub those off. And we don't need these pieces here. We're just going to work with this piece here. Now you don't have to have 2 pieces, and it can be any shape you want to have. It's just that I thought this particular shape really suited this design. So that's going to go onto there like that. So I'm going to glue that down now. Now I only want to put glue really in this section and this section. So what I'm going to try to do is normally I would put glue on here and glue this piece to that, but this time around I'm actually going to put glue here and going in, because I know I don't want the glue going over this side. It could go up there a little bit, but really I just want that to be on there just like so. And I didn't want any glue interfering with the opening and closing of this card. So I've only just glued it onto this side edge and into this panel here. There's no glue on the back. I don't even think you can see it. There's no glue on the back of that section in there. So now that's going to be like that. So we need to put something in there. So I've already done a little bit of work for us. I haven't worked out the sentiment as yet. Haven't worked out where I'm going to position that. But I'm going to be playing with a few mushrooms. So I've got some mushrooms here. I've also die cut some flowers and some stems, but I don't know whether I'm going to use those or not. I may not even use all those mushrooms. And I die cut out a couple of animals or critters. But again, I don't know whether I'm going to use them. And I've cut out my mushroom tops. So let's just take all of those bits out. They're the bits I know I want to use. I would have loved to have put this guy on there, but he is facing the wrong direction. He's sort of wandering off the card. I wanted him to stay on the card. But then I suppose if you did this and put it onto that side, you could have that going across that way. We could flip our card, except our mushrooms would be standing on their head, and have it going across like that. I could have then also had put my sentiment, didn't even think of this, did I? My sentiment going attached onto here, going across that way. That could have looked quite cute. But anyway, we're working this way because we don't want mushrooms on their heads. So let's grab these and come on, fingernails. Don't know whether you can hear it. My husband has decided to mow the lawn today. Last one for the season, he tells me. So let's pop all those to one side, and we're going to grab a piece of scrap paper here. Pop all of these on here. We're going to colour some of these up. So let's start with our mushroom bases. Put all their caps over there. And I have got some crumb cake and I've got some pecan pie. And I'm going to use a couple of small brushes that I've got here just to colour these up. So this is crumb cake. I'm going to do a mixture of these, but I want to pop a little bit of colour and a bit of colour underneath the mushroom as well. By using the basic beige as my base, it has already started to colour this up for me. So if it was white, I'd be putting a lot more colour on here. So again, I'm just going to add a bit of colour underneath. I'm not worrying too much at the moment with the crumb cake. Just want to add all of that colour on there. I've probably got way too many mushrooms than I need. Again, I'm not really worried about that. And I'm going to put some shading with the pecan pie. Now, if I had the Lakeside Retreat with this particular, the paper and the dies, which unfortunately I don't have, it would work really well with this card because you've then got the chair that you could die cut and put on one side. But again, you just have to check that you've got the chair facing inwards rather than facing outwards. So whatever side you make, as I said, whether you make this coming from this direction or coming from that direction, is going to be, your image has to sit in that direction to follow through. You don't want it sitting, that your chair is sitting and looking off the off your card. You want it to sort of sit on your, looking into the center of your card. So just remember when you are recreating this card that think about things like that. Like, I'd love to have used that critter, but if I had to put it the other way around, I could have. Now I'm going to use the same brush because the crumb cake is fairly light, and I'm just going to come back in now with a little bit of pecan pie and just put a little bit more shadowing on each one of these. Bring a little bit more down the stem if you want. Remember that they don't all have to be the same. They can all be slightly different because, like anything, no two mushrooms are exactly the same. I'm not worrying about whether the shadowing's on one side or the other, but you could do all of that, have more darkness down just one side, just by brushing that colour in there, just on one side. I'm not worrying about the tops of them because we're going to put the caps on there and they're going to change the look of these mushrooms again. Okay, so that's that one. Now, I've got more colours here than what I need because I couldn't decide on what colours. I was choosing the colours out of my paper. And you've got here crushed curry. You've got the terracotta, Cajun craze, and there's no real red in it. And there's also a mossy meadow. But I didn't cut the mossy meadow out in the caps because I thought we've got enough mossy meadow in the whole card without adding too much more green to it. So I've cut some real red, not red, I've cut some Poppy Parade, and I've cut some Cajun Craze, and I've cut some crushed curry. So I'm going to do a few in each one, but as I said, I'm not quite sure yet which ones I'm going to do. I love these really tiny little head brushes. Unfortunately, we don't carry these. These are ones I picked up ages ago from Kmart. And all I want to do is add a little bit of this just really to one side. Try not to put your fingernail in it like I did because otherwise we'll end up with a fingernail shape. And again, I just want to go to one side and just up one side of the cap as well. You don't need to have it colour going on both sides. If you wanted it and you've got a stiffer brush, you could stipple it a little bit, which will make it a if you stippled the colour on with a stippling brush, which I don't have one. No, I don't have one. It will give you like little spots rather than a soft brush. Okay, so that's that one. Just get a bit of colour out of that because I might reuse this brush. Grab our Cajun Craze. And because I'm going from light to dark, I'm going to pop that into there. It's not going to make much of a difference. And again, just adding a little bit of colour on here. Doesn't make too much of a difference with the Cajun Craze because it is a fairly dark colour anyway. Like you're adding dark to dark, so it may not always necessarily tell. But it just will give it a bit of a shadowing so we're not getting all the one colour, like a flat colour. You want it to have a little bit of dimension and depth. And then I'm going to grab another brush and I am going to grab, I've used Poppy Parade, but I'm actually thinking of using Real Red ink on this one. And I'm just going to do the same thing with the Real Red. Just got to make sure I've got my little caps up the right way. I just want to add a little bit on that end. Of course, you can tell which is the right way of your die cut because the edges of the die cut will be curved downwards. That one looks like it's the right way. Okay, so that's all of that. I am going to, I've got here Stampin' Up and bringing out with the new catalogue some white gel pens. I had a bit of a play with these at our convention that we went to, and they work beautifully. So let's hope these are going to work. Just testing it there. Yep, getting them started. And I'm just going to put just a few little dots on these. Not putting too many. You can make them a bit bigger if you wanted to, but I'm just keeping these all about the same size. Just want to put a few random dots on these. And hopefully a few of them will be dry by the time we go to put them onto our stems. Okay. And that works beautifully. Fantastic white gel pen. I have spent so much money on white gel pens, it's not funny. And well, most of them won't work. That one, they work. They flows really, really well. Okay, so let's start gluing some of these together. Now, I'm only really going to start with one or two of each colour. I've probably got a lot more than what I actually need. Also want to make sure that these are dry. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue try not to touch those spots. And let's pop that one on. Let's grab a small Okay. Am I still here? Can anyone hear me? Am I back? I'm not quite sure. Okay.